Everyone. We'll get started here in just a minute. We're just going to give a couple seconds for some stragglers to jump on, and then we'll roll along with our webinar. Thanks for being here. All right. Let's get going. Well, thanks for being here today to our Evaluate webinar series. I know it's lunchtime for a lot of you out there. Hopefully you're just kicking back with a sandwich, got your feet up on the table, and you're going to enjoy some good content here. We're talking about digitizing manufacturing to optimize quality and operations. And we will do that by walking through a demonstration of our Manufacturing Excellence solution, which we affectionately abbreviate as MX. So MX is an electronic batch record or electronic device history record or electronic production record solution, to put it a little more generically. That's what we'll be talking about today. My name is Chris Derrig. I'm an account executive here at MasterControl, been here over 6 years. I come from a small med device / software manufacturer, so I have some experience and understand your pains or the burden, to use a more euphemistic term, of regulatory compliance. We'll be walking through our solution, which helps greatly with digitizing your manufacturing processes and making that burden a lot lighter. We also have Tom Campbell here. Tom is one of our top-notch solution consultants. He comes from industry, so it's always great having him demo our product. So he was once a customer using MasterControl products. Now he does a killer job of actually demonstrating our solutions to people just like you. So with that said, I'll let Tom introduce himself a little bit further when he takes over. But just my role is going to be sort of to give you a 30,000-foot flyover of the solution. I think it's important to get a look at the landscape before you dive down into the trees, so that you sort of have the concept in your head, and just kind of introduce us slowly into this deep dive into the functionality of the software itself. So to give you a sense of the agenda real quick, I'll do my short overview, just to kind of get the concept set. Then we'll turn the time over to Tom. He will dive down into the features and the functionality of the actual solution. And then there will be a Q&A at the end, 5 or 10 minutes, answering questions. There's a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen that you can use if you want to post questions during the demo. We'll address those when we get to the Q&A. If possible, I might address 1 or 2 of those questions during the demonstration. But whether we get to address them during the demo today or not, don't worry. We'll respond by email if that becomes necessary. So just launching into the whole kind of the overview, laying out the concept. I think it's basically, I probably don't need to argue too much to prove that we're all living digital lives now, right? It's unavoidable. We're all using digital apps every day. I wake up each morning, grab my phone. First thing I do, check my calendar, texting my kids, see what they're up to. It's just an integral part of everything we do. And then a lot of us walk into the workplace and we sort of go back in time sometimes. We're dealing with paper, slower processes, more manual processes. Digital oftentimes takes a backseat in the areas where we most need digital solutions. And sometimes our organizations, because we're on paper or because we have poor visibility across our processes, we're a little more reactive than we want to be. It can be a little bit frustrating. So, and also, people coming into the workforce, they've got smartphones in their pockets, and they're expecting that kind of a work environment. And so it can be difficult when we're not in that work environment. I think about, just real quick as a sort of an aside, I think about when I was a courier in Seattle years ago. For those of you born after 1990, a courier was a sort of a glorified delivery person. I zipped all over Seattle delivering sort of confidential documents or highly sensitive documents or time sensitive documents from one organization to another that needed to get there quickly or sensitively or whatever the case may be. And I did all that using paper maps. So much more dangerous trying to use paper maps when you're flying around the city, a lot more inefficient, much more cumbersome, ridiculously cumbersome when you think about, you know, a map open on your dashboard, you're trying to get to places, just crazy. So, I mean, the reason I bring that up is I just think there's just no argument you could make that GPS is not more efficient, is not more convenient, is not more safe, more accurate. It's just a better way to do it. And that's kind of an analogy for moving off of paper manufacturing, where it's even more critical, right, that we're more efficient and more accurate. And that's what we do. That's what we've been doing for 30 plus years, is helping people move from paper to digital, and get off of those higher rates of human error, which creates more inefficiency. Visibility is poor. Those are the things that we're overcoming with our manufacturing solution, moving off manual to digital. As I mentioned, we've been doing that for 30 plus years. One of our skill sets is meeting you where you are, whether you've got some digital capabilities in your processes, or whether you're just fully paper, just entrenched in paper, and we can help you move from where you are to a more digital solution to eventually having that be a complete business transformation where you're paperless and now you're digital, and efficiency has increased, accuracy has increased, happiness has increased. So a little bragging before I turn the time over to Tom. And the reason I brag is not just for the sake of bragging, but I think it's important as you are looking at our solutions, as you're considering MasterControl as a company, that you have a confidence level, a comfort level with who we are and our capabilities, and the high expectations you can have around MasterControl. So like I said, we've been in business 30 plus years. We're a global company. The kinds of life science partners that you would expect us to have are using our solutions, both large and small. Most of these are large here, but we've got, all the way from mom and pops using our software all the way up to, global enterprises using our software. And I like to point out that they're all using the same software. There's not a big version and a little version. There's not a med device version and a pharma version. It is highly flexible, configurable software that allows you to build, your complex processes. I get the question a lot, and this is why I bring this up, is I have a lot of people say to me, well, it looks really great, but can your software actually handle our very complex processes? And the answer is yes, it can. And we're going to show you how it does that. This is flexible, configurable, user-friendly software that allows you to build out your specific processes. Now, as I get ready to turn the time over to Tom, I'll just quickly orient everybody's mind so that we're all on the same page, because I find that sometimes we jump into the demo and you still don't quite have the concept in your head. So think of the software as two sides of the same coin. One side of the software is the template builder tool, where you build out these processes and save them as a template. And then the other side of the software is the executable side of the tool, where you launch out the template into an executable production record that your manufacturing operators will move through step by step, sign off. These are CFR 21 Part 11 compliant signatures, automating these processes, automating calculations, managing and enforcing accuracy throughout that process. Last, it deploys on tablets typically, or workstations or laptops, anything that can get you to a browser. This is cloud-based software. And with that, I think that gets us all on the same page concept-wise. I'm going to turn the time over to Tom. He's going to actually jump in, show you the features and the functionality of the software. And as I said, we'll have Q&A at the end. Feel free to post questions throughout. Thanks, Tom. Take it away.
All right, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'll share my screen and we'll get started. We will jump right in. Okay, so we're going to come right into, yeah, so thanks, Chris, for that introduction. A little bit of my background. I've come from industry. I was a quality engineer for a number of years, working with a lot of, digitization of processes, quality control issues, all the fun related to that. So I really appreciate the digital journey, hopefully you'll be going on here. So excited to show you a sample production record we're going to go through. And so we're going to go through kind of I've created basically a new record here. We're going to go through and execute to that record. You can see we've got a variety of activities, kind of example activities we're going to go through. And then, as Chris mentioned, we'll take a look a little bit at the master template builder towards the end. That's we're going to kind of get under the hood for a minute and see actually how and where you build records. It's a simple no code solution. It's very easy to learn. We train you and empower you to build and manage your own records, so you're not dependent on us, and sustaining in your own operations. So we'll take a look at that a little bit towards the end. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. A couple quick, or maybe a couple overview tools to kind of keep track of our progress overall. You see, we've got the activities here on the left. And this is just an example demo we're going to go through, our template we're going to go through. But we have a couple of tools to keep track of our progress overall. So we've got open jobs. This is basically a summary list of all the activities that are still outstanding or yet to be completed in the record. These are all linked sections that can take the operator right into that section, as they may need. These will also roll off as the team completes these, so it's a good kind of a central point to keep track of the overall progress there. The accountability page tracks a variety of different activities about the record as well. We're going to see a couple of big themes with MX, a couple of really robust GDP functionalities to help manage issues related to GDP errors, documentation, signatures, date and time stamps, all of that kind of stuff. And one of those big themes is going to be automatic date time and username stamping. So anytime a user executes something in the record, and we're going to see this in a minute as I go through the execution flow, but their username as well as the date and time will be stamped automatically at that point of work. This is one of many kind of simple but very robust features in MX that aggregates to save a lot of time in operations as well as mitigate a lot of quality risk. So all that to say, the system will also collect the user IDs for all of the operators that may interface with the record or users in general, and it'll collect those here in this signatures, essentially a signatures manifest here at the top. A quick note on that, you can have basically an unlimited number of users interfacing with the record simultaneously. So it's all, it's all a cloud-based digital access point. You just need browser access. You can see I'm logged in here as myself as Tom Campbell into MasterControl and into this record. But just a quick note, there's unlimited number of users to access in parallel. So we'll see that play out as well. Another big theme is going to be our connections between MX and other systems. So we can connect to MasterControl's documents and training modules. We're going to see some examples of that as well. You can also connect through what we call integrations to things like an ERP or any other kind of database system. And we'll see that coming up in a few minutes. From a high level, we can see all the documents. If you're using MasterControl's documents module, you can see all of the documents that may be associated with this production record, and they're linked here in their relevant location. Additionally, forms. So if you had to launch maybe a corrective action or a deviation form, you can launch a form from any step in the course of the process in MX. It will also show the information about that form here, so you can see it at the high level. You don't have to dig in and go, looking through to find, if there are any forms that may be associated with the record. Lastly, here at the high level, and then we're going to get in and start to execute to the record, is the activity log. Now, this is essentially the audit log for everything that happens in the record, which is recorded chronologically. You can then also sort these fields if you're looking for any specific item here, relevant to the record here. It's a great kind of quick report, investigation point for the record. We could circle back to that a little bit later once we start to execute some of the activities. So I've grouped things into just three logical units, maybe here that we see pre-production, production, and quality. When we look at the master template builder, we'll see that all of this is configurable. There are no canned templates. You basically configure and build your own records as you need, to tailor to your own process. I'm going to come into this first operation line clearance, come into workstation line clearance here, just to get us started. So a couple things we see when we come into this section. The first thing here, right off the top, we've got a link at the top of the record, and this is a link to our QX document here coming in from that documents module. But you can also link to any other sort of form if you're not using MasterControl's documents module and you have your own repository with URLs. You can reference those documents just with a hyperlink, just like you have here. But the other thing that's actually happening here, I'm also going to show you. So we're going to take a look ahead here. I've got an image of what a clean workstation might look like that's ready to go. You can paste in images in many different places throughout the record. And we have a couple of our steps that we are going to execute to here. But what I'm going to do here, so I've logged in as myself as Tom Campbell, and there's something else happening in the background here. This connection, a pretty robust connection, to manage the training access. So to make sure that only those users who are trained on the right phases can access those phases and execute to those activities. So before I go further, I'm actually going to switch browsers for just a moment, essentially switching login. So you can see I'm now logged in as a user who we shall call the untrained, who has not signed off their training relative to this particular workstation line clearance phase. And you'll see that because this user has not signed off their training when they attempt to access this phase, they're hit with this barrier here. Basically, there are training tasks that need to be completed before they can move forward. You can recheck training. It'll take the user directly to that training module where they can commence or complete that training. Override is not that doesn't mean I get to override. It's a supervisory role, right? You can grant if you do things like on-the-job training. But you'll see if I try to cancel out of this, I cannot bypass that. And now these fields are all grayed out. So as this untrained user, I cannot access this phase. I cannot, I don't even have the opportunity to stamp my unfortunate credentials on the record here because I have not signed off the training course that contains this particular SOP. So right out of the gate, some pretty robust functionality there to make sure only those users who are trained on the relevant sections are able to even access those sections. So I'm back on my original login as myself, and I have dutifully signed off my trainings prior to today. So I'm going to come in here and start to execute to this line clearance. So I've got step 1, verify equipment line A. Go ahead and complete that. I've verified equipment line B. Complete that. And right away, we'll see that, one of our big themes of automatic date time and username stamping is coming into play. So my username, the date and time of that activity gets stamped right away. I didn't have to remember to record my initials, to record the date and time. There's no chance of error there. One of these little things that can aggregate to be big savings, both in quality risk mitigation and in time. We'll also see our traction of the progress theme. So we have green check marks here as we go through the record, and we'll see that continue to play out as well to give us clear visibility of where we are in the progress of the record. Then we've got cleaned workstation, a question here, a yes or no question. I'm actually going to say no on this question. We'll see that actions trigger on no here. And this is going to be another theme with MX, is that the system can be configured, that you can configure the system to automatically drive actions in response to, let's say out of spec scenarios. So in this case, we said no in this relatively simple question here. So we've got a few things that we can configure to happen. The first thing, we've got a warning here that I've configured in this example. Also a note here, there's supervisor notified, and this is to imply that, or to indicate that MX can be configured to notify specific roles directly. So if you have a supervisor or maybe manager that you want to have notified as a result of an out of spec situation, you can configure the system to send that notification directly. So you're not dependent on operators to either remember or to be proactive to do that if that's part of your requirements. You can also build in additional instructions here. I've got, ensure workstation is cleaned. You could configure on whatever instructions you want from there. There are going to be a variety of other things you can do as well. We will revisit that when we look at the master template builder a little bit later. You can do things like drive conditional pathways, so you can enforce maybe auxiliary pathways, additional steps to show up as required activities to help operations navigate out of an out of spec scenario, that kind of a thing as well. I'm going to leave this open as it is for right now, and we'll complete this phase so we can move into some of the other functionalities here. Now we'll see that when I complete this section, we notice that at the bottom, there's a username and electronic signature field that now shows up. And this is a verification that I've configured on for this particular phase, basically a second signature, a sign off required to complete this phase. So you can see that Tom Campbell, as the user, has been the one executing here based on, my login or his login here. And so that's how the system knows whose username to stamp at those steps. But for the signature requirement, you determine which role or roles are eligible or are authorized to function as that verifier. And in this case, I've got, let's say we'll We'll say I need my supervisor. We'll call my supervisor Steve. Steve can come over to right on my my point of work. Let's say I'm on a tablet. I happen to be on a laptop right now, but he can come right over to my laptop with his username and electronic signature and sign this off. He does not have to log in separately on his own device and navigate. He can do that if he wants. In this example, it's just whatever's most efficient for your line, for your setup there. So, we see customers use both methods there. But you see that now Steve has verified this phase, and so now I get the green check mark for workstation line clearance because we've satisfied everything we need to complete that phase. You can apply verifications in a lot of different places. It's not just at the end. You can apply it to specific steps, entire groups, entire units. So maybe all of pre-production gets a separate sign-off. You can get very, very granular with your sign-off requirements and configuration. So we've completed line clearance. Let's come into the next operation called setup here. We're going to take a look at materials, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail to track some more information. And again, just a note, these are all configurable. These words even are not pre-canned templates. So this is not a specific way that you have to use this to track your materials. For example, I've built this on as an example for, to accommodate a lot of common scenarios and kind of different ways of thinking of tracking, let's say, materials information, but this is not a required format that you have to use. You configure that entirely from the ground up. But what we've done here, what I've done for this example, is to build this materials to capture our materials in a table. And we see that we've got this condensed view of the table with the different headers. We're going to come in here and execute just a moment. Basically, the way tables work in MasterControl is a little bit different from paper. On paper, you have to allow for the eventuality of populating a lot of different rows. So you've got a lot of blank cells. Whatever you don't need, you cross off and NA and sign off. In MX, it's a lot cleaner than that. You basically just configure your columns and then you iterate the rows as often as you need. And when you're done, you just move on. So we'll start the first row here. We'll see what that looks like. I've got a variety of ways of capturing some information here. We're just going to take a little bit of a tour to the different, types. So we've got a multiple choice. For an example, it might be a tool lot number. If you want to limit the input options, a big theme as we've been talking about is mitigating transcription risk. So we're trying to do that wherever possible, kind of cut out the kind of unfortunate errors to production, so operators can focus more on the quality work at hand and not lose out on administrative errors. So we limit the inputs here. So maybe we'll select this value for this tool. You can pre-populate a list, a drop down here as well. So we'll select that. If you've got complex information, you don't want people having to type in, of course, you can do that a few different ways there. We also have an expiration date functionality. So if you need to record a date, you can apply a limit on that. So if I enter a date that's prior to today, for example, let me zoom in just a little bit, make sure that's visible. You see we've got a warning kind of calling on a theme that we've already talked about here, having the system drive automatic responses. We've got this warning. Maybe the supervisor is getting notified again in our example here with a custom note. We're going to see some more implications of this as we go through the record, but you can manage those inputs automatically there. Let's zoom out a little bit for this next section here. I know it's very small. I will zoom back in just a moment. I want to, these 5 steps are all related here. And this is to cover another big theme with MX is integration. So connecting MX, digitally to other programs or solutions. So maybe you have an ERP to track materials or, another database system to track inventory, warehousing, that kind of information. And we want to connect to that directly. So MX can be configured to do that. And this is an example here where we've got a lot number here. You see, I'm gonna basically trigger this integration with a lot number, and we've got vendor, description, expiration date, quantity. Just as an example, you can see these are all. There's an API at play here that's linking these steps together in the background. So this is somewhat of a common scenario that we see where we want to pull in information from another database system like an ERP, material information. To do this, I'm also going to use a demonstrate barcode scanning. Now, we're big advocates of barcode scanning at MasterControl. Barcode scanning is a very simple and inexpensive solution that really helps glue together a lot of our themes around quality management, mitigating transcription risk. And I actually have a Bluetooth barcode scanner here. You could probably see it, might cut it out on the camera. And I have a little sample packaging just with a barcode on it that I'm going to use to trigger this integration. It's important to note that barcode scanning works. It does not require supplemental integration. It works just like a keyboard device, straight out of the box functionality. You scan a barcode and it'll flow into the record just like it were text typed into a keyboard. You just have the advantage of there's no transcription risk there. An operator's just scanning the value directly. In this case, I'm combining a barcode scan with an integration example. So I'm basically triggering off this integration. I've got a sample piece of materials. You can imagine what I'm about to scan in is, let's say it's a bag with some components in it, something to that effect. And I want that information to flow from the ERP directly onto the record. So I'm going to scan this value, see that value float into the record there, just like it were text entered in through a keyboard there. And now what's happening is MX is going out through this API. It's going out to, let's say, the ERP, and it's going to pull in this information. I'll zoom back in now at this point. I know that's very small there. So we've got the information flowed in from the ERP in this example through this API connection, this integrations connection directly into the record. So very robust capabilities there. Make sure we're only, we're getting the accurate information from the source of truth software or other systems, if it's inventory or ERP, and then pulling that directly on here, cutting out that transcription risk, saving time as well. It's not really value added to have people transcribing values between systems. So really robust capabilities there with integrations in combination with barcode scanning. Just want to reiterate, barcode scanning is straight out of the box functionality. So, that's, you can, if you just want to manually scan in values all the way down, you can do that as well. There's no additional configuration required to be able to do that. So I like to show that integrations because that's very powerful kind of systems level functionality there to really streamline the quality control with our production records in MX. So I've got that first row now, just to show what this looks like. If I needed to continue to populate more information, I can do that with additional rows here just by starting that next row. We're going to move on for right now, but just wanted to show you what tables could start to look like. Come into this section called set point, and I've got just a couple of values here. We've talked a lot about about integrations already, and we try to connect MX to other systems wherever possible to cut out the human transcription risk. But there may be times when you need to manually enter values, or maybe that's desired for whatever reason. You can also configure on controls around those inputs. So in this case, I've got a value, a parameter set point. It happens to be in a percentage. You can force append units to a value. As an engineer myself, it's very nice if there's no units on a numeric value. It's kind of a stand down event, so you figure out what actually those units are. That can be very critical for a process. So it's nice to be able to force append those units here. You see, we also have a limit at play here. It's 25 to 30 in this example. If I enter a value that's outside of that, let's say 24, our theme here comes back in. One of our big themes of automatic responses comes in. We've got the notice there. We've got quality being notified in this case, ensures set points are within limit. Could also do the other extreme is to straight out reject the values. So here we have 30 plus or minus 2. If I enter, let's say 27, you can configure the system to straight out reject the value until it meets that certain point. So it's kind of whatever you want for your requirements there. So I'll update this to just be within limit. We can move forward. Now, while I'm at this, I'm going to go back to this step here for a minute. So we're outside of the limit. It's 25 to 30, and I enter 24. A common scenario we see with a lot of our customers is handling corrections. Now, on paper, corrections can be very messy, of course. You've got a lot of cross-offs, sign-offs, a lot of scribble risk in corrections. So what we have here is the correct entry pathway to kind of navigate out of that. So let's say I actually meant to type 27. I accidentally entered 24. Could launch the correction pathway and get the right documentation on that. So let's say the value is supposed to be 27. You could configure on a lot of different, any root cause reasons you want, for root cause binning, things like that. So maybe in this case, it was just unintentional completion. You can add a note as you need. You don't have to do that. You could configure if you want to have notes or not. I'll just leave a note off for right now. And then I'll apply that correction. You see that now the value is updated to 27. And then from a traceability perspective, we don't lose track of that. You'd see all of the information about the corrections is tracked to who entered what, when it was changed, why, as well as the date, times, username of all of that activity itself. So everything's tracked here as we're going through corrections. As a matter of fact, at this point, I'm also going to hop forward for just a minute to our review by exception view. We're going to come back in and finish out some of the rest of these activities in a minute. Now that we've had a couple issues on the record, we could say I'm going to jump forward to this review by exception dashboard view, and this is really another very robust functionality in MX that a lot of our customers get enormous time savings from, as well as quality management benefits from. Now, this is basically a one-stop quality dashboard that summarizes only the key activities that need to be reviewed for the record. So as I come in here, this is also where the record will be signed off for the final release at the end. You determine those roles to do that here. You'll notice it's grayed out currently, and that's because the record's not 100% complete yet. So the record has to be fully complete before it's even eligible to be signed off for release. When I come in here, you see we've got a lot of these big tiles, and this is all configurable. You determine which types of activities you need to point forward to this summary dashboard. But these are all basically drill down. So you can see we have steps corrected. As I click on that, it will expand the information here. It pulls in the relevant step, the exact same formatting. It ports it forward now just to my view here as basically a quality manager or quality, whoever's signing off your records or reviewing your records. But you can also use this from a supervisory perspective, just to kind of keep track of the flow of activities, keep track of key elements that are happening. It can also be configured to proactively monitor things, say things like attachments, for example, not necessarily just deviations, but basically a summary view. But earlier we had that fail. We don't lose track of that. It doesn't get buried in the record. All of that gets brought out and summarized here from this high level. So we make sure we're reviewing this before we release there. So I wanted to show you that just to keep in mind. This is running in parallel in the background in real time to the overall course of the production. So I'll complete this set point now that we've got that updated. And here I just have another sign off. I'm going to use my supervisor, Steve, again. He'll sign that off there. And now everything for pre-production has been satisfied, and I can move into this next phase that I've called production. Now under production, I've got a few different process, component, dimensions. Again, this is all configurable, fully configurable. You can call this whatever you want. You can have a lot more than just these. This is not a canned template by any means. We'll come into process time, and we're going to start to get into some calculation elements around in MasterControl or in MX. MX can handle calculations of a variety of different types automatically, which is another big theme. So you don't have to have anybody doing arithmetic anymore. There's no more math errors. All that's outmoded here with MX. We're going to track time in this case. So we've got manufacturing start time as an example. I'm going to go ahead and basically timestamp that, and I'll wait a few seconds here just for our demo purposes and record the end. Now this is end time, manufacturing end time, and now we can see that once I have the start and end times, this duration calculates automatically. Now in this case, it was just 6 seconds elapsed. To keep it relatively short for demo purposes here, but you could configure on limits as well. So in this example, it had to be at least 15 seconds. We didn't meet that in this case. You can establish a range if you want to do that alternatively. And because we didn't meet these requirements for time in this example, I've got the warning, supervisor's getting notified again, ensure the process runs for more than 15 seconds. We could do other things like I've talked about, drive conditional paths, maybe additional steps show up. It'll show on review by exception as we've seen already there. So that's one example of tracking calculations on time durations there. We're now going to look at basically doing a mathematical calculation here. Now we have a mass calculation. I'm just going to look ahead for a minute here. You see we've got this total mass. It's basically a summation of these 3 steps with some controls and some criteria on that calculation. But here I'm going to go ahead and start to record some values. Maybe mass 1 is 50 kilograms. Again, we're force appending the units here, which is really nice, making sure the units are all consistent. Maybe mass 2 is 25 and mass 3 was maybe, let's say, 7. Excuse me. In that case, once the terms are all populated, the calculation will run automatically. So we see this summation ran to an 82 kilograms. We did have a limit here of it had to be 100 plus or minus 2%. You can also control rounding, decimal precision, all of that. You can enforce a decimal precision if you want on inputs, and all of that there. So you can get very granular with your numeric controls there. So because we didn't meet this limit, we have our warning as well. Warning here, escalate to quality for disposition. And the quality is going to be getting notified again, potentially, if that's what you need there. But very powerful. This is a very simple calculation, obviously, but we'll look at the builder tool in just a minute. You can see its full scientific functionality in your numeric expression building capabilities. So complete that now. I know I'm completing a lot of things with stuff that's open, but I'm trying to move forward here just to make sure I get you all this good content in the time that we have here. So label attachment, coming towards the end of this record here, you can also attach files to the record, and you can do this in a variety of ways. So you can either browse for a file type that's maybe on the hardware that you're working on. But if you're on a system with a camera, like I am right now, but on my laptop, but also if it's a tablet, a lot of our customers use tablets on the line. It's a pretty efficient way to do that, to run MasterControl. You can also use that camera system to capture the image and upload it directly. So if I capture this image, it'll take, you'll open up the camera device, just one click, it uploads directly. I know for a lot of our customers, it's kind of a hassle to get documented auxiliary material on the record. If it's attachments for reports, maybe that a device outputs, or images of the label or the final product. All of that can be kind of a hassle. But here I'm just going to attach a file type that I've got called a TXT file. It's file type agnostic, so you can attach any file type you want. But just keep in mind, you can also attach images directly with just 2 clicks there. Complete this, label attach. And then I've got a couple final QC checks here. Just a couple of pass fails to kind of round out our activities for this particular record. So, a couple of pass fails, maybe criteria A passes and maybe criteria B fails. We've got quality being notified. Again, here, that's going to point forward to our review by exception as well. So if we hop back into review by exception now that we're ready to review the record for release, we see a few more things have happened. Again, that attachment, it's not necessarily just for deviations, can also be just for proactive reviews of key information. So you want to just see those attachments in one place. It'll be linked there. You could click on it right from here. You don't have to rifle through the entire long document or production record to find it. It's summarized right here. Got a variety of limits that have failed, so we're going to probably want to take a look at those. Still driving our follow-ups. It just comes from this viewpoint here in review by exception, rather than having to go through manually review line by line. And this, this review by exception, this is where we see a lot of our customers save 50 to 80% of their times overall, especially in reviews, is they don't have to review dates and times, signatures, dates and times. All that's handled automatically, so you don't have to proactively review that. There's no risk of not having a date and time or a signature. Arithmetic, you don't have to have somebody double checking the math. You don't have to do that anymore. The system handles all that. And as you see, I think as you get kind of more comfortable with the tool, you realize you can rely on a lot of the baked-in quality controls that you configure onto the record, so you don't have to be manually reviewing every single element of the record like you do on paper right now. So really robust functionality here with review by exception to only focus on the really critical elements that need to be reviewed before the release signature. Now, we're still not 100% complete. I think I left one step open there, so I still cannot sign this off because there is a step that has not been completed. Another very robust functionality there. You don't want to be signing off. It's very easy to do to sign off a paper record with, step 17 was missing a signature or an initial or a time or something like that. There's no chance of that here in MX, so very robust to help manage those GDP type errors. Okay, so that's it from the execution side. We've gone through, we've had a new record there. We'll just hop back out for a minute here. We've gone through our record. You see, we still have to complete this step, but we've gone through basically our sample execution of this record here. We had some pre-production, production, quality activities that we went through. We executed those steps. We saw sign-offs. We inputted a variety of different information. We brought in information through integrations from other systems, from the document and training modules in MasterControl. And then we executed some of our manufacturing activities and went through how you would review that record for that final release. What I want to do now, we've got about 10 minutes left or so. I'm gonna hop over to the master template builder. We're gonna take a look kind of under the hood for a minute, kind of get a feel for how easy it is to make changes to your templates. So, we're in a specific template now here called Wonder Process. It's revision W there. We've got our product ID for this example. We're actually going to come into that template now and make some of the changes and see how easy it is to modify some of this content. So we're going to take a look at that there. There's no code in the master template builder. It usually takes about 2 hours to go through the training in our experience to learn how to use this builder. And again, we empower you to do that, so you're not dependent on us to make changes to your revisions. You don't have to come back to us and submit requests. None of that. You own your own templates. You make changes whenever you want, and you have your own approval pathways that are independent of us. We don't even get involved in that. So it's very efficient. And you also are empowered to fully own that process. I'm in here now in these master templates. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different view here than the execution side. So you see we've got a few different versions here that have all been archived. The preceding versions have all been archived. We were just executing to revision W that's in production. I'm going to go ahead and kick off a revision here, and we're going to come into that revision to make changes. Now, revisioning is tracked robustly as well. You establish basically a revision lineage, and it adheres to that lineage as you make changes. So you can see that revision X in this case was produced in draft, or was created in draft, but revision W is still in production. So we're going to come in here and make some changes to revision X, but revision W is still in production. Until we're ready to promote revision X into production, at which point revision W would be automatically archived, just like T, U, and V were here previously when I made some changes to this in the past. So we'll come into this latest revision that's in draft. Now the view is going to be a little bit different. This is more of a staging area type view because we're in here basically under the hood now to make changes to the record itself, to the template itself that would be executed to by operations. It's the same unit, contains operations, contain phases, and then within the phases are the steps. It's that same hierarchy. It's just more of this left to right mapped out view here. You may recognize some of these sections from the demonstration. We had our calculation, label, attach, etc. So as you click on the activity, the subdependent structures will open up here as well. We're going to go ahead and just create some new content, see how easy that is. Again, there's no coding in this. I'm going to create a new phase. I'll just call it a new phase to kind of keep it simple and keep us oriented here. Now that created phase 2 under line clearance. And then I come into configure, and this is basically where we get into this kind of blank canvas where we actually start to build our step-by-step activities. We're going to configure on some controls around those inputs. All of that happens here now in this view. So we're all configuring in this new phase that I just created. And this is where, I mentioned it usually takes about 1 to 2 hours to get our customers trained on all of this here, what all the step types mean and do, and then the nuances and the applications for the different properties and control measures. We're going to spend, maybe about 5 to 10 minutes here right now just to get a feel for it. But just keeping in mind, in about 2 hours, in my experience, our customers are basically hitting the ground building themselves, which is very fast. There's no coding. It's very easy to use. Even had multiple customers say it was actually fun to use because of how simple it was. So I'll add a couple of step types on here. We'll get a feel for that. So maybe if I want a general text, these are all click and drop types of functionalities. We'll start with a general text step, maybe follow it up with a numeric data entry and maybe a step complete step type to get started. You see that as I click on those, we've got 1, 2, and 3. So it ordinates those as they flow into the record. Now each step will have a properties pane over here on the right. And this is where you'll make your configuration decisions about how you want to control that step. So every step will have a description. This is for a general text and alphanumeric type entry. Maybe it's record, equipment, ID, something to that effect. Let me zoom in just a little bit here. And then you'll come back and configure your properties. This is a numeric step type. It highlights the step type that it is for clear visibility. This is maybe we're recording weight or mass, let's say. You could figure that on there. Step complete, maybe it's complete cleaning task. Let's call it that for right now. And then you can come back into the properties and configure what you need there. So again, this is where it usually takes about 1 to 2 hours to go through the training, which we provide for you as part of your implementation with MasterControl to understand what everything does here. But these are all basically checkboxes to configure these properties on or off. If we're going to do a corrections, maybe we want a correction note. We want to configure some reasons to choose from. These are also configurable. I'll choose just a couple of these. The properties also reflect the step type that it is. So for a numeric capture, if we're recording the mass, maybe we have a unit of measure. We saw this there. We want to force append that. Maybe it's in grams. And then, for numeric limits is another big one here. We looked at a variety of examples of this. Here you can establish a range or a target with a plus or minus percentage tolerance. And then you configure your options when out of range. Like we looked at reject, you can either reject the value, but it's really as simple as just checkboxes to configure these properties on. You can warn the user, display on a review by exception. This is where you build your review by exception dashboard. We talked about that. That's fully configurable as well. So you determine which activities you want to show up on review by exception, if they fail in the course of production. The calculation tool as well, we looked at that just to reiterate it as full scientific functionality there. It's just an expression builder, so there's no like cryptic coding to build your expressions. You just select you could select any of the numeric values from the production record and build expressions based on that. So if I pull in this mass from the step we just created, I can then let's say multiply that by a value from another phase entirely. Divide that from the quantity value for the overall production record, something to that effect. Just going quick here to show you can pull those values in from anywhere and build your calculations. And then the units are also pulled in so you can see whether or not it's going to reconcile. In this case, obviously, this is not the expression we want to build, but it's that simple basically to build expressions to pull in values from anywhere in the record. It does not have to be just the preceding steps there. And then you can configure on your controls on the output. So you can configure controls on the inputs numerically as well as on the outputs. Very robust there. I'm just going to delete that out for right now. But you can see we've got a variety of other step types in here as well. We looked at the attachment, pass, fail, multiple choice. We saw some duration calculation example there, using the date to manage expiration dates there. Now, once you have your values on the record, you can also click and drag. There are a lot of tips and tricks. Again, your configuration consultant will help you with this as you're going live to get you trained up on how to do that. But you can see I can just drag these around. You're not locked into a specific order. It's very flexible as you make changes there. I dragged this cleaning task up here. It reordinates automatically there. And at a high level, you can drag your activities as well around. So let's say that new phase I created, we want to make that phase one, drag that up there. All the steps within all these phases will also automatically reordinate there. So a lot of tips and tricks to streamline your build process overall. Okay, so that's a quick look at the master template builder. Again, it usually takes about 1 to 2 hours to go through all the training for all the steps here, but that's very fast. In my experience, our customers pick it up very quickly because it's super simple. I mean, we covered 70% of the complexity of this. It's that last maybe 20 to 30% that's just getting into some of the more subtle details of some of the quality controls around these properties here. But it's super simple to use, and build your records and make changes. You can also save some of these. Another kind of very powerful functionality here is you can save some of these structures themselves as templates. So let's say your pre-production activity is the same across, you have maybe 10 different products, but your pre-production activities are all the same, or maybe your line clearance is all the same. You can basically what we call templatize that line clearance and then import that into all of your different product templates. So you don't have to rebuild that in each of those templates, each of your product templates. You can, basically condense or, consolidate the activities that are shared across the different products. And we have a few other functionalities there. We've got product families as a whole platform there. That's part of MX to be able to further make your records more dynamic. So you don't have to we're really trying to make sure you don't have to redo activities, redo configuration, or try to streamline that process, as much as possible there. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to show you today. We went through the execution record. We went through, created a record, went through kind of from start to finish, looked at all the different quality controls that you can employ there, or a lot of them that you can employ. We looked at integrations, connecting a master controller MX to other systems, pulling in values from other databases as well, including on the same platform with master controls documents and training modules as well as forms. And then we got under the hood here a little bit and looked at the MX Master Template Builder just to see how easy it is to create new records as well as manage those records going forward. And just a reminder, that's you fully own that process. We train you to do that. You're not dependent on us at all. So super easy, fast and easy to learn, and easy to make changes, to your records in sustaining. I think that's what I had. Chris, do we want to go to some Q&A? I've seen some questions coming up. I'm going to go
sounds great.
Sharon. I think we've got some time for a few questions.
Yeah, I think we should be able to address all the questions we got. One of them related to product families, which you just covered real quickly, the ability to modify or include variables within a template so that if you have an example I like to use is, let's say you are a cough syrup manufacturer and you have orange, cherry, and blueberry flavored cough syrup. You can have a single template for the production of cough syrup, and then you just have a toggle to choose orange, cherry, or blueberry. I think those were the colors I just said, to cascade those required changes throughout that template. So one template to cover 3 SKUs, for example.
Right.
That's
yeah.
Product families. A couple other questions that came up. One was, and this is an important question, how is validation of master control managed? So great question, because we like, again, I'm kind of you can tell I brag a little bit. Master Control has a patented validation tool we refer to as VXT, or our Validation Excellence tool. And this is, I think I mentioned earlier that the FDA is actually one of our customers. We work fairly closely with them, and in conjunction with, I believe it was actually some retired FDA officials, but we built this patented validation tool that greatly reduces the amount of work or burden or headcount required to be able to maintain a validated system as we push out. Because one beautiful thing about MasterControl is we don't just sell you some software and walk away. We are constantly developing and improving, adding functionality, adding new features to our software. And so we push out upgrades from time to time, which requires revalidation of the system. And our validation tool helps greatly and reduces what you might, if you've experienced validation in the past, this will reduce that burden by about 80–90% is the feedback we get. So what could take a week and multiple people to validate now takes you a few hours. That's the validation tool. I invite you to go to mastercontrol.com to check out more about validation. Another question that came up. How long does it take to implement the MX solution? So this is also a great question. When you think about manufacturing execution systems, if you've dealt with those in the past, you know that they are large behemoth type systems that can take 1 or 2 years to implement. And by the time you're done, you have pulled all your hair out and are probably never wanting to be involved in that kind of a situation again. This is the opposite of that. And so I mentioned that in contrast. It takes about 90 to 120 days to get MX up and running. The implementation process includes us, our project managers, holding your hand through the entire process. Part of that implementation includes building out your entire first template and getting you all the way to go live with that template. So by the time you're done with implementation, you're up and running. We like to see you have success, a quick win with MX and get that first batch record or device history record or production record up and running. So we'll help you with that. And I'll mention this. Tom mentioned that as he was talking about the template builder tool, it's designed to be user-friendly, flexible, allow you to build your own templates from A to Z without any engagement with MasterControl, and that's very true. However, I'll just mention, I'll reiterate that yes, during implementation, we help you build that entire template. You'll get a lot of hands-on training during that process, and so you'll be ready to hit the ground running without MasterControl. But never fear, we're always here. We're ready to support you. We can help you build out additional templates if you want us to, although you don't need us. So just want to emphasize that. We're ready to help if you need us, but the template builder tool is designed to be user-friendly, easy to use, easy for you to manage, revise, build, configure your templates. Where is cloud available is one of the questions, and the answer to that is in the cloud. The cloud is available in the cloud. Basically, all our solutions are cloud-based, and as I mentioned earlier, anything that will get you to a browser will get you to MasterControl solutions. I hope I answered that question right. One of the questions was related to integrating with an ERP. Tom covered that, but I'll just reiterate. We have an awesome API integrations team here at MasterControl. So as far as integrations go, you can employ our integrations team to build out integrations. A very common one is to integrate with your ERP, as Tom showed you. You can use our team to build that out, or you can use our API toolkit. If you've got your own integrations, good IT staff who are very, familiar building integrations, they want to handle that themselves. You can use our API toolkit and build those integrations yourself. Or there's kind of a spectrum there. You can do it yourself, or you can kind of work with MasterControl to sort of do a hybrid of that, and your team can consult with ours. I think there was one more. Can multiple people be entering data at the same time? Yes. You heard me use the word collaborative, multi-user. This is real-time software. So as you saw Tom going through executing on that production record, you could have 5 or 10,000 people logged in simultaneously during production. All of them are executing. And if I were logged in, I could see what Tom has just entered. If let's say we're both entering data in the same phase, and I can look and see, oh, Tom just entered that data. He just used that scale, and now I'm entering my data, et cetera, et cetera. So it's tracking us in real time, and visibility is in real time across that production record. So those are the questions. I hope those were helpful. We appreciate you being here for our webinar today. We will be saving this recording. Glad to have you here. We'll send that out to anybody who requests it. Thanks for being here, and hope you'll attend future webinars with MasterControl. Have a great day. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, guys.